Hello, in this video, we're going to walk through solving the problem presented on the last slide of the PowerPoint. You were given an ordered pairs, hours studying, and a test score, and we have 9 ordered pairs here. N equals 9. What I also want to do is I want to solve this manually, which is why I have our formulas here to create the regression line. And we will also solve it using Excel formulas like slope and intercept. But before we can even do this, we have to know there's a correlation, because if there isn't a correlation between these two things, between X and Y, then there's no reason to even move forward. So if you recall, we have the formula CORREL to get the correlation coefficient. So I'm going to do that first. And if I just start typing it in, it comes up and it tells me to highlight one array of numbers, followed by a comma, and then the other array of numbers. And we get this 0.968 if we want to round it as our correlation coefficient. And if you recall, we compare that value to the critical values in the table. So it's based on our sample size, which is n, which happens to be 9. So we go down to where n equals 9. And if our correlation is significant, the correlation coefficient that we've calculated needs to be greater than these critical values. So 0.968 is greater than 0.666, and 0.968 is greater than 0.798. So it is significant 99% of the time. So we can move forward doing this. So we are going to first solve this manually using the formulas that we were given. And now I know that I'm going to need, if you recall, this symbol here means to sum up what follows it. So I know I need the sum of xy. I know I'm going to need the sum of x squared. I know I'm going to need the sum of the x's and the sum of the y's. So the first thing I'm going to do is get all those intermediate values, and then we can put them all together. So xy, and I'm using Excel for all of this. Remember, I just start with an equal sign, and it'll do the math for me. I'm going to look at my x value, and I'm going to multiply that by my y value and hit enter. And then when I copy this, it's going to copy the formula that I just put in to where I indicate, and it will adjust where it looks accordingly. Because all I've said here basically is look over 2 columns and multiply it by 1 column over. When I copy it, it adjusts the rows that it's looking at. It's looking at the 3rd row here. Here it's looking at the 4th row, etc. Likewise, x squared is just going to be the x value times the x value. And again, I'm just going to copy that for all the other rows. Okay, the other thing I need is the sums of each of these columns, and we can use the formula in Excel sum. And I'm going to say sum up the 9 values above me, so that when I copy this, it is going to adjust and look for the sum of the 9 values above. So I'm just hitting Control C, copying that over. And now each of these areas, if I look here, I'm summing up E2 to E10, which is these values right here. I'm also ultimately going to need the mean of the y values and the mean of the x values. So in Excel, that's the formula equal average. And I'm going to use that. And I'm going to sum up, I'm going to get the average of the x values. And I'm also going to get the average of the y values I can just copy this over there. And now we have all the intermediate values that we need to solve this manually. So I'm going to do, first I'm going to solve for the numerator, and then I'm going to solve for the denominator, and then we'll put it together. So using Excel again, I'm just going to start with an equal sign, and n is 9. So I'm going to type in 9, and now I'm going to multiply that by the sum of xy, which is right here. So I can put the multiplication symbol, and I can just point to the sum of xy. And from that, I'm going to subtract the sum of the x's times the sum of the y's. So I'm going to point to the sum of the x's, multiply it times the sum of the y's, put my ending parentheses, and there is my numerator. To calculate the denominator, equal n, which is 9, and I'm going to multiply that by the sum of the x squared. So here's x squared, the sum is right here. And from that, I'm going to subtract the sum of the x's, and that is going to be squared. So from that, I'm going to subtract the sum of the x's, which is right here, and I'm just going to multiply those two things together, and that is squared. So my slope, m equals 3219 divided by 432. And we're going to divide that by this, and we get 7.451. Now let's just use the slope formula in Excel and hope that we get the same number. And slope, it tells me to highlight the y's and then the x's. So that's what I'm going to do, comma, and now I'm going to highlight the x's, hit enter, and we get the same number. So this is our slope. Y-intercept, if we go down here, is just the mean of the y's minus the slope times the mean of the x's. So the y-intercept is the mean of the y's, which is right here, 72.222. And we're going to subtract from that the slope times, and I have the slope value right here, the slope times the mean of the x's, which is right over here, 4.667, and hit enter. And so my y-intercept is 37.45, or much easier, we can just use the intercept formula in Excel. Again, it wants the y's first, followed by the x's. And we hit enter, and we get the same number, which is really nice. So our formula is y equals mx plus b. So y equals our slope, which is 7.45 x plus, and the y-intercept is b, which is 37.45. And we'll come back to this in a minute. But that means now, if I want to find the y value when x is 3, I can just plug 3 in here, and likewise for 13. I wanted to graph this. I forgot to do that. So we are going to highlight our x's and our y's. And I'm saying insert up here. I'm going to click on something that looks like a scatter plot. And there is my graph. And I wanted to show you how to actually superimpose your trend line or regression line onto your graph. And you can just go over here and select trend line, and there it is. And you can see that it makes sense. Where our y-intercept is, we have 37.45, which kind of looks like that could be right there. Our slope is positive, which makes sense because our trend line is going up. So if I want to know what y is when x equals 3, I can just say, I'll just type in the numbers, 7.45 times 3 plus 37.45. And I get 59.8. And we can look over here to see if that kind of makes sense. When x is 3, it looks like it's very close to 59.8. When x equals 13, this is where you should check your original data, because 13 is outside of our original x values that were used in these ordered pairs. Then even calculating the y value for x equals 13 doesn't make sense. So we're not even going to bother doing this. The 3 is within our original values, so it does make sense to do that. So I hope that helps, and Have a good day.